A hybrid is a embryo that was taken from a human and mixed with extraterrestrial DNA and developed from the womb or outside the womb. The extraterrestrials have the ability, you hear this of abduction cases all along,
Right.
that these abductees see these vats with human embryos growing. And that's exactly how the extraterrestrials do it. They take the embryo, they attach the extraterrestrial DNA, and they grow. They appear to be human, but in actuality, they're part human and part hybrid. Now, even as I understand this, and this is was sensitive, even the extraterrestrials, now they're dealing with a human embryo,
Right.
okay? And so they don't know exactly how this thing is going to turn out, as I understood. Some of these embryos turn out to be more extraterrestrial looking than human looking. And okay, now what do you do with those? Well, they have the ability, they're advanced, they're thousands of years more advanced in genetic ability than we are. They're then able to manipulate the structure of that embryo once it's born into that of a human. But it still carries the traits, interior and internal traits of an extraterrestrial. And the example of this is one of the 14-year-olds that they were dealing with that was a member of this family of psychic people with psychic ability. Mm-hmm. They physically examined. Now, this is back before MRIs and CAT scans.
When was Project ArcWeld, just for the audience, actually what year was that?
That was in the mid-70s.
Okay,
mid-70s.
Okay.
And so they didn't have all the techniques that we have today. But they had x-rays and they had some other abilities to look. Well, when they did basic x-rays on this 14-year-old, they realized her organs weren't in the same place that the human organs were. And she had something else inside her, another organ. They had no idea what it was. Now they realized that 14-year-old is more extraterrestrial than human. And that's probably why she had so many unique abilities to foresee things, psychic ability to move things that others didn't have. And then as we learn more about these people and about these hybrids, the more advanced that we started experimenting to determine how they became
like how they modified the genetics so they look like a human, but internally and psychically and probably their whole neural system's completely different.
Exactly. And they did all sorts of other tests, medical tests. That, I'm not a doctor and I can't understand it. You probably would could understand it more than I could. But they did tests like injecting things into their body through a vein or an artery and watching it on a fluoroscope or whatever they call it. And if you look at a human, it flows in a certain way. If you look at it, the extraterrestrial, it doesn't flow in that same way. Something catches that because it's a foreign body. They have the ability to fight or collect foreign substances, which we can't. I mean, it's going to flow through our bodies, our veins and arteries and capillaries, where in the extraterrestrial, it doesn't.
There's like reservoirs for these whatever toxins or...
Again, I don't know the entire program, but that's the basics of the program to prepare the United States military and defense community for whatever we have to face into the future. And that was Project ArcWeld. And that was a goal of Project ArcWeld, is to bring people in that were clairvoyant and have the ability to foresee the future.
And what agency controls ArcWeld?
Defense Intelligence Agency.
And how do they pick these individuals out? Just was there testing or... was there something other special thing about them? They
developed a screening process for personnel, and back then it was only military personnel. But they developed a screening process, people that had unique abilities or psychic abilities. Yeah. And so they used that same selection process for ArcWeld. But they also realized that not only grown-ups or adults were capable of these things, but they found during the selection process that some of the family members of these people that they were screening was as good or not or even better than they were. So they actually brought in children that were as young as 14 years old that were clairvoyant, or they had astral projection ability, unique abilities. And so they brought them in and they trained them, of course, under the direct supervision of their parents.
Right. Is there any particular psychic agent that stands out that you'd like to mention?
Oh, there's several. There's several. And this is where I have to be very careful because some of them are still working for the government. But during this process, the selection process, they found that some of these people had such unique abilities that they started questioning them exactly who they were or where they came from, whether they were all human.
Right.
At that time, in that particular time period, they didn't have the ability or the knowledge that they later had on how to determine whether a human-looking person was in fact a hybrid or masking as an extraterrestrial. So that really presented a problem for the Defense Intelligence Agency, who was involved in this program of ArcWeld. So then now they had to brainstorm and use scientific principles, and medical doctors brought them in to try to screen or develop a screening process for these people who they think might be something other than humans.
So how do they make this jump from being psychic to possibly, being not completely human?
Well, they used the remote viewers, and they used people who developed the remote viewing process to screen these applicants, so to speak, one-on-one. And as they were screening one-on-one, when you sit down with another person directly across from, like